Welcome to the Resistance broadcast, everybody. I'm John, that's Lacey, and we have a great episode for you today. It's a special episode because we're not done being Galactic Goonies yet. We have the showrunner, co-creator, and writer of Skeleton Crew, Christopher Ford, for you all. We're going to get to that interview in just a moment. Lacey, how amazing was it to chat with him without giving anything away?
It's hard because he said a lot of amazing things, told us some really great stories, and I was laughing a lot. He's a funny guy.
He is.
It was a really enjoyable time. I was riding high on adrenaline after this conversation.
I was too. I was pacing around my house like, that was such a great chat. I wish it was longer, but now it's time for you to stop hearing us talk about it, and let's just get to it. Our interview with Christopher Ford. Well, Mr. Ford, Christopher, Chris, thank you so much for joining us here on the Resistance broadcast. Thanks for being a Galactic Goonie with us, and congratulations on Skeleton Crew. We absolutely loved it, and we just want to thank you for taking the time to be with us here today.
Of course, yeah. No, thank you. I mean, thanks for liking it.
We loved it. Like is an understatement. I loved it.
Legitimate. Yeah. It's from start to finish, I just felt like you guys did such a great job balancing the fun and humor of Star Wars, which I feel like it's been missing a little bit lately, with the high stakes and the drama and everything into a nice stew. And it came out at the right time and everything. So I look at, Rotten Tomatoes once in a while, and I see that critics and audience both love Skeleton Crew. And I'll start off by just asking you, how do you make a Star Wars that critics and fans both like now?
It's fun you say that, and I go, I don't know, but I guess we did do that.
You did.
I mean,
you did.
It's cheesy, but like we just are super fans, and we just love it. So we try to just keep that in the center of every decision.
That's awesome.
Now, how'd you get into Star Wars? Because everyone has their, first watched Star Wars or...
Exactly. Like, I can't even remember when I first watched it because I just watched it from birth, basically. I mean, I don't know when my parents got it VCR, but it was from that point on. And
similar story
there.
for me. Yeah. Did you guys have to, did you have to unfan yourself to make sure you weren't just trying to make Star Wars versus telling the story you were looking to tell in Star Wars?
Yeah, it's kind of, there's different hats, but I'm kind of used to that. When you write something and then you go back and rewrite it, you have to kind of pretend you're a new guy and go, what is this? Who wrote this? And try to fix it up. So yeah, I had to just, so much time was spent pounding your head against trying to tell a story that makes sense and make it as good as you can. Completely separate from the fact that it's Star Wars.
Right.
And then you kind of have to wait and then let that be your little reward or treat at the end to get to go back and look at it and go and then there's a lightsaber in it,
Yeah. I mean, that is the best part of Star Wars is lightsabers.
Exactly.
If we're all being honest, yeah, that is probably the best part. Now, you guys pitched this as a movie originally, so was there a major shift in we got to fill 240 minutes now? What are we adding? Do you recall elements of the story that you really had to add in to fill out an 8-episode show versus your initial scope of a movie?
Yeah, it was a movie, but it was very much just a starting point for what the story would be as far as we got into it before we just had to kind of put a pin into it. John was busy making Spider-Mans. And then when we revisited it eventually later for Disney Plus and it being a show, the fact that it was now, 3 times as long was, not that big of a problem because we still, we didn't know the full story from the first point anyway. But, it's interesting though, because I still think of it, it exists in this, and I think a lot of streaming shows do. They exist in this new kind of hybrid genre where it's kind of between a movie and a show. You kind of have to have episodes work as episodes, but if it's 8 episodes and it kind of has an ending, it's a little movie-ish too.
That's true.
Yeah.
On that same thread, now that you have a show, were there things that got cut out? So something that kind of trended this week on social media was that a woman said that she played a Jedi that
Oh
found
yeah.
Jod. What things didn't make it in, or was there anything that didn't that you were like, man, I wish it did, but maybe could go into something else? Or what does that look like behind
Yeah.
the scenes?
I mean, there's probably more just uneven scripted ideas that we had that didn't
Yeah.
end up in there. I think most of it is in there, and the stuff that we cut out are little bips and boops and snips and little things. I know John talked about it, like sometimes you watch a director's cut and you learn like, oh, this scene started with the person walking into the room and they cut that out.
Right.
So it's
But
not always
sometimes
that amazing.
and a
Yeah,
lot
so
of
it was
times you
nothing
just
that like
agree.
changes
Yeah.
the course of the story or adds Star Wars lore. It was
Mhm.
like there was like another scene of Wim and his dad having dinner that we ended up not needing. But actually, but that specific example actually with that Jedi, I think it's really this is what's interesting. I mean, I was always watching, following the rumors in the news like everybody else before I got onto the other side of it all. And it's really fascinating to see how everyone's trying their best to figure out like what happened with stuff like that. And it's not exactly right what people have figured
Sure.
out.
Oh,
She
really?
was actually played a Jedi who was going to be in like a hologram call that the supervisor was going to play back for them. Instead of him, he
Oh,
just says like,
wow. Okay.
"Oh, like we got a call that the Jedi were traitors," and we were kind of going off the show don't tell thing. We actually had like he was like, and this like here's a Jedi who called in, and she was like actually in the middle of defending herself from clones while she was calling in and like being like
Oh.
something's going on.
I'm actually
Um,
glad you cut that because I love how he's like, "You're lying because the Jedi are evil."
Right, exactly.
It's
So,
just so
like
much impact. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So what's crazy is, like, she did an amazing job,
Sure.
but because of our finding things in the edit or, like, that part should have just been faster or to have that be, like, a twist, snappy moment, if we just couldn't use it.
That's
The idea that she was Jod's teacher is just, like, a good guess, but but
Welcome to Star Wars fandom. I
yeah,
mean, how has your experience been along those lines of, like, people making all these theories? You watched us talk about
yeah.
stuff every week where you
yeah.
were like were you ever like, "No, that's wrong. That's
Yeah.
completely
Well,
wrong."
I mean, so
Or
that was so funny. So then I got a huge kick out of going on and watching people's speculations and things, like especially during the run of the show.
Mhm.
Um, and I was always afraid that someone would come up with an idea that was like way better, or
Oh,
better is hard, but like
no.
more interesting or like more dramatic. And I feel like we did okay. Like I didn't feel people got their hopes built up too high and we let them down. Probably the biggest one was like the tack rented stuff. It didn't end up being as much of a thing
It didn't
as
need it
people
though.
wished.
No, it didn't need it, and I think sometimes as fans, we complicate things to a point that you're like, "That's too much, back it off, back it off."
Yeah,
So,
it's
I
really
think you guys
interesting
were
because
perfect, yeah.
it's just like think of like the brain power of just like I don't know how many thousands of people like mulling over a thing, and it's like we thought we worked so hard on every story beat, but we're just a couple of people.
But at the same time, like the first scene of the show, I almost said movie, but to me, I'm like, oh my God, this is such an homage to A New Hope in terms of how they're getting captured, the ship, how they're entering, using the Vader line almost verbatim, the soldier looking around all scared. Like, I was like, this is amazing. It's an homage, but it's very unique. And then I started thinking, like, after I watched the show, you guys don't explain everything that happened in the past. But neither did Star Wars when it first came out. It's like, oh, that guy's a wizard? Okay, he's a wizard. And that guy's this? Okay, he's this. It's like we didn't need to know everything and we still got the story. And I feel like you guys nailed that because we live in this day and age where I feel like everybody needs the answer to everything. And I'm glad you guys
Yeah.
didn't do that too much. And it still felt like the show had closure to it. I felt at peace with everything that happened. So I guess it's not really a question, but was that a conscious choice to say like we don't need to answer everything? Like let's
Oh
release
yeah.
ourselves from that burden.
Oh yeah, yeah, big time. And both because it's like impossible, but also, growing up when we did, that was just what Star Wars was. Like you said, like there was answers you never had, and you didn't even have an internet to be able to talk to that many
Right.
people. Like you would talk to your couple friends at recess who didn't necessarily have any better theories than you did about like
Yeah, right.
who is Boba Fett? Like what is he doing? Is he human under there? You know what I mean? There's so many questions we had just no idea about.
Yeah, because his action figure came out before he came out. That's a great point. The
Yeah,
Boba Fett
exactly,
action figure.
exactly.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that was always the charm of it too. And that's why because I thought a lot about why Star Wars is so special to people. And obviously it's just awesome. But, kind of behind the scenes, it has to be that kind of, that George Lucas was tapping into, that Here with a Thousand Faces stuff, and that it's mythology. And mythology doesn't have like a beginning and an end. And if you look at like real mythologies in the world, it's like it's overly complex. It's like you hear these stories about like Greek mythology or something, and it's like it doesn't always make sense within the other story. And like, wait, this one here is, or what's it? Anyway. Oh yeah, Hera. See, this seems crazy because that's a Greek mythology character. But anyway, so the idea that it would always be bigger than gets filled in makes it cooler, makes it be expansive, and you can always add more to it. And then almost the weird thing that we've now done is add more to it. Like it almost wasn't, that was clearly was not intended to be done when he was making the first movie and hoping to make one or two more.
That's a great point. Now, in terms of how you approached it, I believe in past, and I loved how you guys like answered the question so simply, like, what's this about? And you're like, it's about kids getting lost in space. And I love how like simply you guys always put that little tagline. It was perfect. But you're right, it is complex, but you wrote it with an ending, but also with the opportunity to expand upon it in the future. And you said something about, the kids are going to grow and they're going to get older, so we would have to approach it that way, where it wouldn't be like The Force Awakens to The Last Jedi, where it's like the next day we're starting the story over. So there would be that time gap. Did you guys envision where you saw the kids going, or is it just sort of like one day, we will see them again, perhaps?
Yeah. It's like by like screenwriting rules, the characters have a full little story. They grow and they change and all of that. Like at the end of A New Hope, like Luke Skywalker is like a hero, and he's not just like a nerd on his like uncle's
whining
farm.
about power converters. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And so it satisfies on that level. But then you think to yourself like, where is Darth Vader? And it has so much more to it. So it was George Lucas crafted that way from the start. So we were just trying to do, again, just that same kind of thing. In terms of the kids' ages, we didn't really know what would happen. Like the fact that our show got delayed by the strikes and whatever, and it came out a year after it would have normally, maybe in a different universe, we went right into making more with them, and it could have been, they're still, tweens or whatever. But, I think longer term, our vision and hope is if we did do more, it would be, watching them grow up, or seeing those time jumps. And it's like seeing it not exactly this, but more like, like little kid Anakin to heartthrob Anakin.
Heartthrob Anakin. Yeah.
How do you, so I know you said you have kids. Does being a dad, did that help you sort of write dialogue for kids? Did you run anything by your kids? Like, hey, would you say anything like this? Are you sitting on your couch like, this is a great line, what do you think? Like, how casual is it? And like, do you use your kids to help you write for kids?
No, like my kids would just say like, no, that's terrible, no matter what I showed them.
Oh, man. That's what I have to look forward to, I guess.
But it's funny because John and I, we've been writing stuff for kids kind of this age ever since we started writing together. Most of that stuff has never been produced. It was just, as we were learning and getting into the industry.
Oh, okay.
We were writing all kinds of spec scripts and stuff. And one of them got made, which is Cop Car, that has kind of kids that age. And that was before I was a parent. So it's kind of like more imagining remembering what I was like as a kid. I think having kids does help, but it's not the only, like the quick solution. Just have some kids and you can write kids.
Right.
Yeah. Speaking of Cop Car, congratulations. You're now part of the 6 degrees of separation of Kevin Bacon.
I know, we're like right
and
in
now
there.
we are too, because we
there you go.
So thank you for that.
Nice. Of course.
Yeah,
isn't that weird? It's weird to be Kevin Bacon. It was like weird to like meet Kevin Bacon. And
was it?
You're
like, oh, Yeah, you're just Kevin Bacon.
Did,
Does he
now,
dance
did you
a
bring
lot?
it up to him? Yeah, I was gonna say.
He did not dance a lot, but he would just. I think his one request was to have access to a guitar. He would just sit between setups and just like.
Oh yeah, him and his brother in a band, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so cool. What a guy.
Bacon Brothers. Yeah. But you guys started in horror though, sort of, and
Yeah.
I gotta ask you. We want to focus on Skeleton Crew mostly, but I saw Grindhouse in 2007 in the theaters, and I saw all the fake trailers, and I saw Thanksgiving. Then Eli Roth makes it, and I didn't know this, but you wrote the screenplay for that?
John and I wrote a draft of it somewhere in the middle of its attempt to become real or realer.
That's such a cult thing. That is so cool.
That's actually how I got into the WGA and got my health insurance.
Congratulations.
There you
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Happy Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. We I had made a movie before, a horror movie that was like a indie sci-fi movie called Robot and Frank. And then after that, then John and I co-wrote with him Clown, which was this sick horror movie that Eli Roth likes.
So it seems like from your filmography, you're like very gory horror and like pop culture Star Wars Spider-Man. Like, is that just how your tastes go? Is it like, yeah, I'm all the way over in horror and I love this, or do you kind of like everything?
Yeah, I like a lot of things. I think the stuff I end up writing has to have like a really interesting sci-fi hook or a fantasy hook or something, and then comes the hard work of writing real characters that you care about. Those characters could exist in like a family drama where they're just, all going to grandma's funeral, but I just get bored and I want to add a robot in. Yeah.
In terms of robots, SM33 and Nick Frost, can you give us shed any light on like your interactions with Nick and how that collaborating and creating that character? Because for a franchise that has 50 years under its belt and 5 billion droids, you guys nailed a unique, very niche, cool, fun droid. So anything you could tell us about the creation of that and Nick's involvement?
Oh, cool. Well, I mean, just the fact that we knew he was going to be kind of a buried alive, old forgotten droid that kind of comes back to life, but is really messed up, was like a nice first step into having some kind of making him distinct. And then the pirate thing on top of that. So then, and I think John had said in other interviews, sometimes when we're putting together like storyboards or things, it ends up like John's just doing all the voices for all the characters. And we realized like, oh, we should see if we can get him, because it's like that's kind of the voice John's doing already.
Okay.
Yeah. So we kind of I don't know why, but it just felt like sometimes those characters are like NEEL. They just kind of come fully formed out of the ether into our minds, and we think, is this from something else? And it is. It has bits and boops. Neil talked about like Treasure Planet having this like broken droid with this memory, and we realized we were kind of doing that after we had done it, but then instead, I think it was Martin Short, so it's like a very different kind of character.
It was like Martin Short.
I mean, what's that?
It was like Martin Short. Is that what you said?
Isn't that who does the voice in Treasure Planet of the broken robot?
I think you might be right. Yeah. Wow. Very cool.
Yeah, but but in terms of SM33, it was just, I don't know, it just felt, I don't know, everyone got what we were trying to do. It was very clear. Broken down pirate. The fact that he is mean to the kids and seems so crusty and like a grumpy old man, but then loves them so much.
The end when he comes back was such a victory. As a fan that's watching it, you're like, yes, the payoff is there. I mean, honestly, this whole series, I felt so clever, even though I'm not that clever, of like little moments like NEEL being shown the gun and all these things that like it feels like such a payoff by the end. You're like, I remembered all these things. I stuck with it. I remembered all these things.
Good, yeah.
And it just came together so beautifully. And he was definitely a highlight where he comes up with his head in his hand, kind of like Shakespeare, like just hanging out.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah,
it's great.
And that stuff was fun too, because you come up with this idea like that, and you go, "Can we do that?" And you go, "Of course we can." Like C-3PO got blasted to 1 million pieces. Like we can do it. We have permission.
Exactly.
Anything you want. Yeah, with droids, they kind of just never die.
Exactly. Yeah, that, and then on top of all of that, conceptually, then the fact that we had like legendary effects and the people who made the actual puppet suit hybrid thing
Yes,
be
yes.
so cool and good. It just, I still can't believe it.
This
You guys
show
worked
had
with
some
Phil
of the
Tippett.
best. Yeah, Phil Tippett. Some of the best
exactly.
features.
Like I have, I've got this little maquette of the creature that they gave us. Isn't that amazing?
The
It's so
trash
cool.
crab.
Wow.
It looks like
So cool.
Jon Favreau's advice. He says you make them make something, so then you get to keep it.
But what's so crazy is we do this trash grab, and then I saw someone online go like, "Oh yeah, they're totally referencing that from that one book," and I was like, "What book?" And I go and I find it. There's this really cool like choose your own adventure kind of like picture book. It's like Luke and Leia adventure.
Yeah.
And they crash on a kind of trash planet, and there's just that exact giant crab covered in stuff, and none of us knew about it, but it's just like exactly the same, like even to the point where I think it has like
Destined
an art
to
team
be.
stuck to it in like the same place.
That's so funny.
Yeah. And I was like, again, it's like this thing where sometimes ideas are kind of there and they just want to be somehow.
They're just cool. Cool ideas are cool.
Big
Whether
galaxy,
it's a book or,
you know.
Yeah.
Sure, there's another trash crab around.
Yeah. The crab thing is weird. The crab thing is a good example where there's that exact crab that we did not know about, which I think is cool. And then there was like Filoni's crab people. There were these crabs in
Ahsoka.
in Bad Batch, like on the beach. But I didn't. So when those would come out, I would see them. I would go, "Oh no, more crabs!"
Star Wars has too many crabs.
There's a lot of crabby looking like vulture droids and stuff. There's a lot of snippy type of droids out there. In
the
Star
lobster
Wars,
creature, Therm Scissor Punch, and
Therm
Solo.
Scissor Punch from Solo. Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
I mean, do Mon Calos have weird hands? Or they kind of have big hands?
No, they have kind of.
You have an Akbar back there, Lacey, somewhere. Yeah.
He has webbed hands, but they're not like pincers.
Okay,
they're more like just man hands
like,
that have webs.
Yeah, they look like oven mitts or something. Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah.
How do they build those ships with those terrible hands?
I don't know, but you could take your cookies out of the oven, no problem.
Yeah, exactly.
So with Jod, we got to no, hang on. I guess we're just gonna ask it. Is his real name Jod?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, so being on the inside now, when I used to not be on the inside, you like would watch interviews with Filoni or George Lucas and stuff, and people ask questions like this, and they kind of would go like, "Well," and I don't know if it's the same reason, but the honest, real answer is, unless it has become for sure in the contents of the show everyone watches, you kind of want to leave some wiggle room if you need it for a story idea later.
That works.
Filoni's way of doing it is, "That's interesting," and then he moves on. That's all he says. Interesting. Yeah. That's the Filoni way.
Exactly. I would guess that it at least is partly Jod, so that's like a part of it or a core of it or something. But
we don't really know. I love that answer.
And also the fact that maybe someone else will do something with Jod who's not even me and Watts. Like, if he gets to be in a comic or something, like I would want them to have the freedom to do what's best for their individual story. That's what's hard, is you got to do what's great for your story that makes your story work, and then fit it in with this larger thing. That's actually really, really hard.
Are you able to let go of your characters that way? I know you have to in a sense, but like emotionally, you're okay with that, to be like, here's Jod, you tell your Jod story, because George Lucas had to sell the entire thing, and I don't know how he did that.
Yeah, I mean, I am in the sense that I always, because film is so collaborative, and like you write this character in your head and then you give it to an actor, and every single time in my experience it becomes way better. So it's like, oh phew, thank goodness. So yeah, I think in a general sense I'm like and also too, like just literally also listening to people speculate and come up with theories or think of, like, what did Ja do in the next scene that we didn't show,
You guys left so many things
Oh
off
yeah,
screen.
yeah. Come on.
So many things. He'd be like, 1 sec, and then it would cut, and you'd be like, but did he just beat people up? Like, what just happened?
Right, exactly,
Yep.
exactly.
But I
What do you
loved it.
do
I loved it.
After he goes, just shoot me. Like, what happened? How
I
do you
know,
get those
like, but
Eopians?
what's fun to me is like that could be a whole comic of like what really
Yeah.
happened
Oh,
there. Because
yeah.
like maybe or maybe not, it's what he said. Like maybe a part. But the thing that was really smart that Jude Law brought was he always wanted to have Ja be smart and tell as little of a lie as possible. So it was his thing was like, because when we first wrote it, he was just lying and lying and lying, and Jude was like, no, he shouldn't say I'm a Jedi. He just like let them, and so there's literally that line where he says, "I never actually said that."
It's like
Oh,
Obi-Wan
yeah.
Kenobi, who's like, from your own certain point of view, I did tell the truth.
Right,
It's kind of like that.
exactly.
Yeah,
So like,
yeah.
he smart. So he always, I think his kind of lie would be, it's mostly true, but he left that one really important thing that you could like skate by on.
Yeah, he's I said in the show, like every episode, I was like, he's Han Soloing harder than Han Solo could do.
Yeah.
Like he's just
Yeah.
more clever at playing who his audience is, knowing what he needs to do with the person in front of him to get to that next stop, that next
He'll
place.
become a different person. Yeah.
Yeah, and I went back and watched the first few episodes, and his humor hits so good when you see ultimately where he gets in later in the series of
That's
him
a
being
fun
like,
layer.
"Yeah, whatever, kids, whatever you need, kids, sure." And then you eventually know like he's gonna flip out on him 4 episodes in.
Right,
Which, by the way, I never felt more like a character than when they're bouncing on the bed and he's like, "No, we're about to die. Why are you not listening to me right now?"
Oh my God. Yeah.
The parents
Again,
in me was like, "Oh, go."
Yeah, and what was so great that he was so game for that, and he added so much to that. Like I think the first version that we had, the kind of first draft version of John was just he's kind of like a huckster, just kind of a little more sleazy, just making it stuff up, kind of glibly charming, and he brought so much more kind of like deep humanity to it. I mean, and when you compare it to Han Solo, I think it's that similar thing of, especially like what we learned in Solo, that he is such like a hurt, scared person, and so he puts that persona up to protect himself.
Yes.
And it's like completely the same thing with Jod. And I think you can feel that in the subtext of how he plays it. It's like when he connects with these kids and but doesn't want to, he wants
He's
to
like he's surviving. Yeah.
There were certain moments, like you guys really took us for a ride on that episode on Ad Akron, where he goes and he's like, the little ones. And I'm like, okay, he still needs them. I understand that. And NEEL goes to hug him, but then he reaches over and grabs Wim and pulls him in for the hug. I'm like, this guy's their friend. He's not going to turn on them by the end. You guys really took us for a ride on that one.
Just
what's
you,
amazing
John.
about that is that was Jude's performance. You know what I mean? Like what's weird about filmmaking is it doesn't say in the script, and he's a little bit extra nice, so you'll think that he's really likes them. It's like these things are, you make a plan, and then depending on how it plays, or maybe he could have done that and then we thought it didn't work, so we would have cut it out. But so you're given these golden things and you have to use them or not use them accordingly. It's crazy.
I haven't laughed as hard as I had at the episode, the same one where he just goes, "Just shoot me." Just I laughed so hard. I haven't laughed that hard at Star Wars in years. It was so genuinely funny. His acting, the delivery, everything about it was just like, you know what? I'm over it.
And that's another thing too, where it's like there's us, me and John kind of running things and producing and writing, and then the individual, obviously like Jude as a performer, and then whoever is the director of that episode.
Right.
And there's obviously there's so much focus on the directors because they're amazing, but sometimes when you're watching it, they're kind of invisible. But like the way that Daniels made those funny moments really funny is different than another director's approach would have been. It's endlessly fascinating.
Was there anything that you wrote that you were just like, "Yep, that's me. I did that. I wrote that line"? Because the line where Fern says, "Everywhere we went, even in the worst places, there were good people too." That I started crying watching that line. Because especially nowadays, it's just one of those things that like it reminded me of Mr. Rogers, who's like always looking for people that are helping. I
We
was
talked
just
about that
curious.
exact thing.
Oh
Yeah, we
my
talked
god, it's
about
such a
that exact
beautiful moment and
Yeah.
just tears. So I was
Yeah.
wondering if there was any moment that you were like, "Yep, that's me. I did that. My line."
I mean, that one was a great one, and that one was a reshoot
Oh,
because
wow.
we did a version of that scene, but it wasn't as didn't quite stick it as hard.
Sure.
It was more plot based, and we thought,
Wow, good
when you go
call,
back
man.
and but then the
Amazing.
reshoot process is amazing because you get to hone things in a way that make them how they should be, how they want to be. So hopefully you can't tell there's certain scenes where the kids are like 2 years older.
No,
We
I
tried
didn't. No idea.
I didn't, and you know what? I'm glad you said that, Chris, because a lot of people think that reshoots mean something went wrong, and
Oh my
that's
god,
not the
yeah.
case. You know what I mean? In the past few years, it's like, "Oh my god, reshoots, that means something's terrible has happened," and it's
Yeah.
like, "No, we just wanna make the story better."
Oh yeah, reshoots are like our favorite thing. Like, oh good, we get to like
Yeah.
yeah, and sometimes it's just like it's not even adding something, it's like finding a transitional thing so you can get through stuff cleaner and
Mhm.
stuff. But to answer your actual question, for me, it was all the claimsy stuff that I'm kind of the most proud of. And it was in there for so long in just the pilot, and then when we found a way to pay it off and have 33 use it as like a pirate code input, um,
Yeah.
I was like, hopefully people don't think this is dumb.
Loved it.
No, yeah. That's the thing, like, I watched my first watch of all these episodes by myself, and, my son eventually watched it, my wife watched it as well. I do have a question from him I'll get to in a minute, and he promised I was like, "I'm talking to the guy who made this stuff." He's like, "Wait, what do you mean? Is he a nice guy?" I'm like, "Yeah, he's a nice guy."
He's a
Um,
monster.
so well, I guess I'll just ask you his question because
Yeah.
he, he's 6, so I
My
told
son
him
is
like,
6 also.
"Oh,
Nice.
perfect." So
Yeah.
he thinks like, "Oh, this guy who made this story and he's obsessed with monsters, Godzilla, like Filoni, like all that stuff."
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly.
he wanted me to ask you, how did you, if you're such a nice guy, use your imagination to create all those monsters and creature characters?
Yeah. Oh, that's a really good question because it gets to that thing of coming up with the characters that you love is one step, and then the sick thing about writers and storytellers is then you torture them.
Yeah, right.
Like,
Is that
who
the
would
horror
do that?
side of you
Why would
coming
you like
through?
yeah, why would you like come up with Neil and be like, let's make Neil sad? Um, but that's kind of what you have to do. So yeah, I think that's like such a great question from a 6-year-old. But yeah, basically you have to think of scary stuff to put the kids through. And then
Mhm.
the super fun thing is you can write Crab Monster or evil pirate captain. And then we were working with Lucasfilm and
Right.
ILM, and they were like, "How about this drawing?" And it's like, "Oh my god!" So sometimes stuff was like scarier than I imagined it. I probably was imagining things more boring than
Really?
like the expert artists,
Did Filoni
Yeah.
sketch in front of you at all during this process? Was he
Oh
like,
my
"Oh,
god.
let me make a
You know,
quick sketch of what you're talking about"?
like if like there's that old footage of like George Lucas talking about the Force
Mhm.
Oh
during
yeah.
like a Clone Wars meeting, and Filoni's just there, all like young Filoni's there, just next to him, just like drawing the whole time and not even looking up. He does that in every meeting, always on the legal pads, and he like leaves, and sometimes it'll be like you'll see this like awesome drawing of like Ahsoka doing stuff, and I'll be walking by like I'm gonna steal that drawing, and he's always like, "No, you can't take it."
Oh wow.
I think he's smart. You can't just like let things just like like too many Old Republic credits out into the world. Um,
Oh.
but yeah, he's incredible. And so because it's so funny for him to have this other amazing talent that he's an animator and an artist.
Isn't it
It's not
annoying
there.
sometimes? You're like,
Yes,
"Ugh,
yes.
picking
Oh yeah, I
favorites."
also wanted to show I have my original sketch of the kids in my little notebook. Where is it?
Did you sketch it or did he sketch it?
I did. This is my drawing.
You did.
That's the
Oh, I
original
love that.
sketch?
Yeah, before we cast them, so they're a little different.
Oh,
Oh
I
And
my
you see
love
that actually
that.
god.
Neil has no
Neil.
arms. He just has those big ears.
Well, Neil was very Max Rebo at
Yeah,
first,
that's why he
right?
had no
Yes.
arms.
So
Yeah.
so we thought he had to be an ortolan.
Yeah.
And it was just going to be way harder.
Although
I
it's
mean,
funnier now that you know that he falls all the time, that it would have kind of been more comical if he had no arms. He just
But
falls.
okay, that's another good example. We didn't write these falls. The kids started one-upping each other about taking falls, and we did not use even all of them.
so basically
They
like
just
the
were
cast
having
of
fun.
Jackass, just the kids
Yeah,
version.
kind of. I think they're
Yeah.
into that.
So there needs to be a fall cut. That needs to happen
Yes.
somewhere. All the
Yes.
falls. Great.
And they're like good at it too. Like they're bouncy.
Oh, I bet, and they don't get hurt as much as I would if I fell
They
down.
didn't get hurt. I would. It was making me nervous, but they were having a fun time.
The sand
look
dune
like-
one is my favorite. Neil just tumbles
Yeah.
down.
That's kind of real. Like it happened, and then we, did more versions where Jude actually.
He doesn't even stop. He keeps talking. Jude's just talking.
Exactly.
He turns
I
around.
think the real, if a kid really fell down the hill by accident, Jude did stop and go, "Are you okay?" God didn't take over, and
the kids seemed to, I was able to do the round table with you guys, and the kids really seem to like each other, get along with each other. And
Yeah.
it's one thing, I know they're, little kids can be pros, but how was that just had to have made it a lot easier knowing they already liked each other. They didn't have to
Oh, yeah.
pretend.
oh my
It's
God,
amazing.
that was such a blessing. It was amazing. They were so sweet and cute with each other. Like they just would hold hands all the time, and they're
Oh my
like,
God.
like each other, and they're, because it's kind of like that. They're like little thespian kids, but it's also that they're just sweet little kids, and they were going through this crazy moment together, so they kind of really bonded. And it did make everything better, both in terms of they were always happy to be there, but also, I mean, speaking, and talking before about like the rumor stuff, I think when we were still shooting, I saw there was a rumor that went out. It was like, oh, this is a difficult shoot. Like people are upset. And I was like, oh my God, nothing could have been further from the truth. I wanted to like go online.
We said
and be
the
like,
same
"Oh!"
thing. We were like,
No,
what? What is
we
going
had this
on?
crazy, I think because of the kids, really. And also, I mean, the fact that Jude also was like really nice, but like, we had to work more like strict hours work with the kids.
Children, yeah.
And, like it was like little things. It's like there's kids around. So like, you're not allowed to swear,
And someone's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
how could they take this from me? Like,
yeah, right. But it was just kind of a more wholesome, fun experience.
Yeah.
And in the show, we always wanted it to be fun. We
Mhm.
wanted it to be fun in conception and making it. So I don't know. It was this really wonderful shooting experience.
It sounds like it would be.
Yeah.
It's really funny too, though. Like I don't know why there's two spots in the show that made me laugh the hardest that nobody else seemed to find funny.
Okay.
And maybe it's like me still yearning for my athlete days, but when Jod does that leap off frame to shut off SM33, sort of like I was like, I laughed so hard. So I'm like, this dude's like 50, just going for it. Like,
Oh yeah.
And when he's doing the "I'm hungry" speech, and he's giving that whole big speech with the shanty, whoever that was, some pirate in the background going, "Hey, what's he on about?" I'm like,
exactly.
that made me laugh so freaking hard. And I just want to thank you guys for making such a funny Star Wars show. Because when you watch something by yourself and you laugh out loud, you know it got you, and it did
awesome.
many times.
Yeah. And then again, like those are things that are not planned. Like, I mean, on my part. So I mean, in 104 and all in the Daniel stuff, you're gonna see the most unnecessary leaping and flips. There's kind of a theme there. It was like, go for it. So they did.
That's so funny. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh yeah. And then like that kind of feeling of the crowds, like the trial crowd scene of like getting a sense of the pirates. That's what was so fun. Whenever we could find a place to differentiate the pirates from, stormtroopers or whatever, it was always so much fun.
Yeah, not just standing around. That makes sense.
Yeah,
Giving them
they're different,
personalities. Yeah.
It's something to say.
And fresh. Like the only time I remember, I mean, they talk about Hondo, and that's another thing that must have drove you guys nuts, being like, everyone wants
Yeah.
Hondo. I got bad
Yeah.
news for
I
you
mean,
guys. There's
but
no
that
Hondo.
one, like, I knew from the start that people would be like, "Why isn't Hondo?" So we were kind of resigned to it. Yeah.
Because then people are looking at Tack Reynolds, like they're freeze framing the hologram.
Yeah.
You guys must have had a ball, like watching people go absolutely bananas trying to figure all this stuff out.
That's a perfect example. I was like, it's gonna be cool to have the hologram all messed up because it's so old. That's what I was thinking. It's like finding like an old, you know, if it was like a piece of paper, it would have been all burned away and you can barely read it and it falls apart when you're holding it. And then and everyone was like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so then it became like, why are they hiding his face? And I was like, oh no.
Yeah, who is it? Who could it be?
Oh no. What have I done? I created a mystery. Yeah. So I mean, it was supposed to be clear that he was a Weequay.
Yeah.
You know, like the big skull behind him has the thing. But yeah.
So there's a lot of people in this series that lend their voice to different characters, pirates, etc. We've seen in the past in Star Wars projects, directors and writers lend their voices. J.J. Abrams did Dio, Chris Terrio did Akbar's son. Did you give your voice to anything in this show that nobody
me?
picked up
Yeah.
on?
Yeah. I'm in there. I'm the second droid in the droid repair shop on Port Borgo, who wakes up and goes like, "The prince, we must find the prince."
Oh,
I'm not even kidding you.
Amazing.
I am not. When I wrote this question, that scene was playing, and I was like, "That sounds like him." And I wrote this question. Yes,
that one was really fun. That was fun too, because when we're editing, sometimes we'll just whip out our phones and do a voice memo of a line, you know, for like, you know, ADR purposes for like real characters and stuff. And that one, we just did it once and we liked it so much we just kept it because it's a beat up droid. Like, why can't it be a low quality phone recording?
Can you do it one more time? Do the line. Go ahead.
I was like, "Oh, the prince, we must save the prince. He's in danger. Oh, I can't see." And that what's funny about that timing is it's just me reacting to what the Superformer did. So like me saying I can't see is like delayed after he's already acting like I can't see.
He's already walking forward.
Yeah. And then and it was cool because like on the day that guy was in that suit all day and I was running around. So then actually way later, after the premiere, I actually re-met that Superformer and he didn't know who did the voice. I was like, I did the voice, and we were like, oh, we're with one guy together.
Oh, that's awesome. Did that droid have a name? Did you name it anything specific?
Ooh, that's a good question. It's probably in the script as something. That was another thing too that threw me for a loop. There's this thing called the Loop Group where the people do kind of background voices and things. And I always thought that was like really deep background, but like all of the security droids, all the safety droids, and a lot of and even Tack Reynolds were done by the Loop Group, so they weren't credited as individual voices. So it makes me kind of sad. I was like, I wish those specific Loop Group performers got called out, or you know, whatever. So I don't even know like who Sam Witwer did or which.
If he did, he's in this group of people.
I don't know. I actually don't know.
Yeah. Okay, because we're always looking in the credits after the show.
Yeah, so I noticed that. So it was kind of misleading. People were like, "Oh, so it didn't say who Tack Reynolds was. Are they keeping that? Is it?"
And you're like, "No, I just wanted it to look old." And there's the Loop Group.
It's like these things all came together to create this mystery. Yeah. And then I also want to brag that I'm also the little servant guy in the Lanupa spa who gets eaten by the Hutt. Yeah,
you're the pleaser. No.
Wait, all right. So hold on a minute, because that's a big. You probably saw that's a big controversy. Does he eat him? Does he use him as floss? Like what? Because he said not again.
So originally, I was doing the voice, and I was like, "Oh no, please don't! Oh God!" And it's like I was being eaten, and then we were like, "This is maybe a little bit much." And then, oh God, who was it who came up with to say "not again"? And that just solved it. I was like, okay. So the idea is, because I'm saying not again, he just keeps trying to eat me, and then it's like, okay, fine. Oh. So he wants to eat me,
but he's covered in gross spit and stuff. Yeah, because when we talked about on the episode, I was talking about how it reminded me of Spirited Away, where No Face eats the frog guy, and at the end spits him out, and it's everybody's fine.
Yes.
But it reminded me
Spirited Away was a huge influence for that, and for like Cathallops in there.
Nice. Yeah, it's just so I love how fantastical everything was. Like, it reminded me very much of like Labyrinth and like everything I grew up on, including Star Wars. That all the creatures just take you to this place that you're like, I couldn't even imagine coming up with these things on my own or anything. And you only see them in stories like this. So that's really fun.
For sure.
Can you do the voice ones?
Oh yeah. Oh God. So that guy's more like, no, please, no, that kind of thing, right?
Yes.
And then what's crazy is like I did it once, like 13 months ago. So like, what did I do? Yeah.
That clip was everywhere when that episode came out.
That one was really fun because when we were writing it, we just went, okay, let's just put in like a placeholder kind of visual gag, like the kind of thing that George Lucas would do. It's like, okay, the guy eats the other guy, and then it just survived because it was right. It was like that wasn't when we really had to figure out. It just one moment of going, what would George Lucas do?
It's like the dog outside of Jabba's palace eating the thing with the tongue real quick.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I love that stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that I got to ask you, and then we're gonna do a quick little rundown of questions for you before we get out of here. But the Munes taking the mud baths, was that like, oh, Darth Plagueis, the most evil person ever, is immune. Let's have these guys spying it up to give Munes a good name. Like, what was the story with the Munes?
Well, so what's crazy is we were shooting, we were probably ahead of Acolyte. So we didn't know. Also, that was a secret. I did not know that was going to happen, or confirm that he was immune or any of that. We had
so other projects are secrets to you too, like you're in your own little pod.
It's like to certain degrees, like we would talk about certain things, like, but other things not. Like we got the memo that there was a fake Jedi in Obi-Wan. And at that point, Job was going to be maybe a little more fake than real. Maybe we were playing with it. So we're like, okay, that's out. We can't do that. And we actually did have a version where he actually does have like these metal bracelets on the whole show, because he may have. We were leaving it if we needed it to be that he was using magnets, and everyone's picking up on that.
Yeah, because he never used the Force on organic beings. And I'm like, he's always like throwing a metal object somewhere or doing something. I'm like, something's up with this dude.
There was maybe going to be a thing where he convinces the kids that he is a fake Jedi, and then twist he's not, because they take the bracelets off. It's kind of like some kind of reverse Dumbo's feather thing, and then he does have Force powers, and that's how he like then defeats them. But none of that made it. We didn't use.
I'm glad it is what it is. I love it. Like,
it ended up being simpler,
and
so
as
that was good.
Yeah, and as the show goes on, he starts off, he's kind of struggling with the key, but then you see as he's practicing, which we've seen in other series from Dave Filoni with Ahsoka, as he practiced, he got better and better and better. And by the end, he's grabbing the lightsaber, he's turning on, he's flipping things, because he's using the power. He's stretching that muscle.
And I think too that he's like, he's tapping into probably I don't know if I would call it the dark side, but like a more passionate side when he's like in a jam. So it's different when he's like, look, kids, and he like floats the key. That's weaker. But if he like pushes a guy because he's, trying to,
he's mad,
fight for his life and win, that comes out more violently.
Wait,
what were we talking about? That was a sidetrack.
Oh, the Munes, but
Oh yeah. And the Mune. So there, and then also, again, like it's stuff that gets cut out. It's not important, but like there was going to be a scene at the buffet, like when Wim says, "I want to search the buffet." There's gonna be a giant food fight, and the Munes are gonna be there as like the. Like, it's funny that I wasn't trying to rehabilitate Munes because of Plagueis. I was trying to have them still be a part of, like the not what are they, the banking clan,
upper society. Yeah.
Like you can't totally get rid of that. Even into the New Republic, all that stuff.
I love that. Now, we're going to ask you to describe each of these people with one sentence. Are you up for that?
Okay. People? Characters?
People that that you worked with.
Okay.
Yeah. So, describe Jon Watts in one sentence. Or two if you have to.
Oh, my God. I mean, Jon Watts is just like my best friend. But also, he's... what's weird about Jon is his movies are actually really personal, and I think people can kind of maybe figure it out if they read into it, like the Spider-Man movies. But if you know
Yes.
him, it's so personal. So it's
Oh.
kind of amazing, actually. That's not really a
Wow.
sentence, but that's what I have to
I
say.
love that. I mean, you saying he's your best friend. That's
Yeah.
right there. Jon Favreau.
Oh my God. Jon Favreau, mentor, savior, protector,
All right.
inspiration. Yeah.
I
Like
do remember.
having Favreau and Filoni like kind of be the big name producers on our thing just gave us the ability to just be so creative and do whatever we wanted, like working under their protection. It was amazing.
I'll never forget one of my favorite moments at Celebration London was when the kids were on stage to watch the trailer for the first time. Favreau goes, "Kids, watch out for the edge of the stage." Like he was looking at it was the sweetest
Yes.
moment I had ever
Yes.
seen. I'm like, Jon Favreau has to be like the best dude for him
That
in
is
that big
such a-
moment to think of the kids'
Yeah,
safety.
that's awesome. You
Unbelievable.
notice that because that's so true. That's so true. And it's like that. We're like safety on set to, caring about everyone
Oh,
involved.
that's so good to hear.
Getting like
Yeah.
amazing gift baskets from him.
Oh my God.
He's an amazing guy.
You touched on it just now, but Dave Filoni.
Filoni. So if Favreau's kind of this really, kind of like a father figure, honestly, Filoni's more like the older brother where he loves to razz you and that's how he expresses his love. But but then he's just like a Jedi master. Like you just learn from him, just listening to him tell stories and all the stuff he's working on is so like utterly fascinating.
The
I'm not really
skeleton
doing
crew.
sentences, sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. We have two more. We have the skeleton crew, the 4 kids.
Oh my God. I mean, as we talked about, like just so warm and loving and fun and funny. Just, I was worried. I was scared. I was scared to cast kids and to do this to them and their parents. And they rose to the occasion and they were amazing.
Amazing. I agree. And then the last one, of course, 2 more. Sorry, Jude Law.
Jude Law was, like an amazing partner in telling the story. Like he elevated it, he made it better. He did this thing. Okay, in Jude, when Judd finally tells kind of his little backstory,
Mm-hmm.
he kind of reworked it and rewrote it a little bit, and I thought, oh, that's cool. That he's wanted to say it a slightly different way. And then it took me a long time. Basically, we watched these. We're in editing. I watched it 500 times, and then it suddenly hit me. He says that he lived in a hole in the ground, and a Jedi found him, and then he watched that Jedi die in front of him. I was like, that's also Luke Skywalker.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just like
yes,
he lived in a hole in the ground.
literally. Yes. Wow.
And Jude added that.
Wow.
So
because of Luke, or just sort of connected in that weird way?
I think he was. We talked about that, like it being, mythological and these characters and that classic George Lucas thing of it rhymes and all that stuff.
Well, if you look at it, it's like if he's like Luke and has a beginning like Luke, and it goes the other way.
Yeah.
Luke goes this way, where he becomes the hero, and Jod doesn't. It's just luck of the draw.
Yeah.
Like,
well, for me, it connects to this movie I love called it's called Stray Dog. It's this Kurosawa movie, and it's like a cop chasing a criminal who like found or the cop loses his gun and this criminal finds it, and it's this thing of they both had the same tragic life, and like one person made the wrong choice, one person made the right choice. It's just like so cool.
Watch that one.
It's like Anakin, yeah.
Last one, we are actually speaking with him next. Mick Giacchino, who was Giacchinoing all over this series with his music. So yeah.
I mean, again, just like talent, exploding talent. That was amazing working with him.
Yeah, my favorite moment of his in this series is when Wim, even though everything that happened, he still cares about Jod, and he calls out to Jod to join them in the elevator. The way the music swelled there, I mean, the moment itself in a vacuum without music was emotional, but when you had the music, it got me, man. It hit me right in the chest.
And that, what he was doing, like he was so excited to like dive into that world of themes for each character and all these
Mhm.
pieces, and like there's a reason why that's hard. It's hard to like do that at all. And then we had, that was a hard episode to edit because we were like on this ride that also had to hit these beats that mattered, and we're worried about KB, but also the people outside are cheering and like going from like a moment to like, oh no, what was going on here?
Yeah.
And good Lord, it's like a technical emotional achievement.
Amazing.
He's so good.
I know.
I feel so lucky, like few still.
I wish we could talk to you for another 2 hours, Chris. It's been amazing. You are obviously welcome to come back anytime. We would love to have you to talk more about Skeleton Crew, or hopefully you and John and Mick do a Star Wars
Other
movie
Star
one
Wars
day.
stuff.
Yeah.
Do you have
Skeleton
other
Crew?
stories that haven't been pitched yet? Like other ideas?
I mean, we have a ton of ideas, so we'll see. What the people want to see.
Amazing. We can't thank you enough. Congratulations on the series. It was incredible. I love that everybody can watch it and everybody seemed to love it, from critics to fans, all ages.
Yeah,
You guys knocked it out of the park, and we can't thank you enough for making it and also taking the time to chat with us today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for listening.
We'll see you out there in a galaxy far, far away one day. We know it.
That's right.
Thanks, Chris. We told you how great it was. What'd you think? Let us know in the comments. Hit us up. All those bits and tidbits, stories, exclusive reveals, his voice cameos. Lacey, before we get out of here, your final thoughts, immediate thoughts after that incredible interview with Christopher Ford.
I just can't believe my thought of that kind of sounds like him was correct.
Yeah, wow.
I thought I was going to ask directly if it was him. And I was like, that's so stupid. You don't know if it's him. So that's why I asked this kind of roundabout question that was like, well, all these other people have cameoed. Have you cameoed? But yeah, talk about some of the most memorable moments. He's responsible, not just writing, but also his own voice.
Yes. And, you think about, who's the personality behind the heart of this story. And like we saw so many amazing moments and we talked about it with him, but his answer to describe Jon Watts in one sentence shows it all. He starts that whole thing off.
Best friend.
Yeah, it wasn't billion-dollar Spider-Man director, incredible visionary. It was, well, he's my best friend. And that's it, like exactly who that guy is. And it was such an amazing chat. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed having it. We hope to have him back on one day in the future. He's a galactic Goonie for life, regardless. So we just want to say thank you again to Christopher Ford for taking the time to hang with us here in the base and talk Skeleton Crew with us. Lacey, anything else?
No, he was just so great. I'm like in like this like weird post-interview glow of like what a great fun conversation. I learned so much stuff from it. And walked away like I have even more of an appreciation of a series that I fell in love with from the moment it started. So
Yeah.
I hope they get to do more. He hinted at having more ideas for more Star Wars stuff. So even if it's not Skeleton Crew, I hope they stay in the galaxy somehow.
Yeah, let them make a movie, let them do whatever. We loved everything they brought to the table, and I agree. After having talked to him, rooting for them even more. So thank you again, Christopher Ford. Thank you all for listening and watching. Make sure you're subscribed on your preferred podcast app or YouTube, of course. And until next time, where we have more fun in store for you, we'll see you around, kids.